Let me transfer you.
Switch to Farm Bureau Insurance today and get real service instead of getting really tangled up. For auto, home, life, and health, get the membership advantage. Get Farm Bureau Insurance.
Well, obviously they've got a great quarterback. He's been there forever. He was a kid that we recruited here at Richmond years ago. And, he chose Elon, for his reasons. But, I think, Coach Limbo's been known as a guy, who's been able to have great offenses. And, his quarterback and his receivers, they do a great job of, capitalizing on defenses that can't control them.
How valuable was that game in Virginia? How much did you guys learn about yourselves, and how much better are you now, do you think, than you were then?
Well, it was a great situation. Obviously, it was an electric atmosphere for the guys. They got the opportunity to play in a major college atmosphere against Division I football players, and I think we walked away with valuable lessons. We didn't play as well as we wanted to play at times, but if you can take the pluses from that game and fix the minuses, I think we'll be okay.
When you think about the fanfare this weekend and the new stadium and all that stuff, how big of a deal does that matter to you guys at all?
We're playing here this week. I thought we were going downtown. No, it's overly exciting, for myself and for the guys, and I've talked to a lot of people about the promise that we made fifth-year seniors like Eric McBride and those guys, that they would have the opportunity to play at home, and they do. It's a great situation for our alumni, for our fans, and mostly for our students on campus. We're just excited this weekend to be able to have this thing full of people in red shirts.
You're gonna make sure you get here pretty early to beat the traffic?
I hope they let me in. I see Jim Miller in the back, and he asked me yesterday if I was going to make it Saturday, if I had a ticket for the game. So I'm definitely looking forward, and I think we'll be here and get enough time to make sure that all of our staff is able to get in the parking lot.
What do you remember about your recruiting pitches when you were here as an assistant and recruiting UR Stadium, and how has it changed now that you can recruit Robins Stadium?
Well, I think that drawing that we used to have in the hallway was the same thing that we used on recruiting weekends, about the possibilities of what we may have had. And I think now it's a reality. And, the kids that they come on campus today, tomorrow, or Saturday, they'll have the opportunity to actually see the stadium. And I think it's a great sell. I mean, if you mix our academic situation with our football tradition and now, this facility that we've built, I think it puts us in a great situation.
How familiar are you guys with everything over there, and how much will be new on Saturday?
I don't know that there'll be much new because we're out there every day. And, this summer when we had our scrimmages, we had our mock games out there. We used all the situations and scenarios that we'll use on Saturday. So we've used our locker room out there. We've worked in our entrance and all types of things. So it's familiar territory for myself and the guys.
CAA now has a win over an ACC team 3 straight years. Not to put too much of a negative spin on it, but could you guys be doing a disservice to yourself because you keep winning these games? I mean, how much are these wins going to make it tougher to schedule those games in the future? Because nobody's going to want that on their schedule anymore.
I'm not really sure how all that stuff goes into play. I think that's something that our athletic director would probably be better to answer. But for us and all the teams in our conference, we enjoy going to play, Duke and NC State and Virginia and those people. I think it's great for our kids to go and play in those atmospheres and test ourselves against those people.
This schedule, your out-of-conference schedule is as tough as the CAA schedule. Because Elon is, it's an out-of-conference game, but you just met him in the playoffs 2 years ago. You're not going to get a team any more ready for this season than they will be for this. How excited do you guys get about seeing all these teams on your schedule, especially this weekend?
Well, we definitely get excited about competition, and I think the thing about a competitive team is, our guys didn't fare so well 2 weeks ago, and I think the mark of a competitor is you kind of want to show up the next day and do it all over again, and we've had a week off, so we've had some time to kind of think about some things and check ourselves and figure out that we need to be better. So it's a great situation for myself and the team.
Ask a recruiting question. When you were here before, Dave had you fellas fan out south a lot. Texas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana for Justin. Richmond sort of veered away from that a little bit in the last couple of years. Is it safe to assume under you you're going to go back that way a little bit more?
I think we found some pretty good players,
Yeah,
you know, the places that we were. And, you know, we'd be crazy, you know, not to recruit the same places. But, you know, Richmond's a national school, you know, so obviously, you know, we'll recruit the areas that fit our profile. But, you know, we did have some success in North Carolina and Georgia and South Carolina and, you know, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida as well. But, you know, we'll go wherever we have to go to find players because our administration, you know, gives us that opportunity.
In terms of Trey Gray, he was targeted often at Virginia. Was that more so because of Grayson being limited and Boston being out, or has he just emerged as the top playmaker in your offense?
Well, you know, I think we have the ability with all three of those guys to have playmakers. I think, you know, Trey was the healthiest, and he was the guy that had practiced the most. So, you know, he was the guy that we felt like we could depend on during that game. But I think when you have all three of those guys healthy, you've got a great situation. So I wouldn't say that we have a go-to guy. I would say that, you know, we have three guys on the perimeter that have the ability to make plays.
Hey, Coach, kind of switching gears, how important is the student attendance going to be at this game since it is the first home game?
It's extremely important to us, and it's always been important to us. You know, just as I've talked to you about before, you know, we want our student body involved in this situation, you know, very much. I think we're able to get, you know, over 2,000 students to pick up their tickets, which, you know, is a great situation for us. And actually, we're going to have something on campus for the students tonight, so we're looking forward to them participating. But, you know, our team, you know, wants their classmates to be involved in this situation. So, you know, we want our student body to be as involved as they will.
Coach, the old adage is that you improve the most between the first and second game, having that week off, having the first experience. Did you see that kind of improvement?
We did. I think, you know, realistically speaking, you know, there were things that you know, we didn't do against Virginia that we did better against ourselves, and you hope that, you know, it carries over into Saturday night. But, you know, the most important thing that I think happened was we had 14 guys that played in their first game. And, you know, you never get your first game back, but, you know, hopefully those guys will be better the second time around.
Aaron looked pretty good at Virginia and hadn't really had a ton of time to be the #1 guy and get most of the snaps. How much do you think he's grown in his relationship with these guys in the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think Aaron proved a lot to a lot of people, you know, on Saturday, you know, just with his ability to make plays. I think, you know, there were some people that doubted him, not necessarily doubted him, but didn't really, you know how good he was, or, you know, didn't really expect him to play the way he played. But, you know, I think definitely he won over his teammates. He won over some people. And I think now, you know, there's an expectation that, you know, he's giving people that, you know, he's got the ability to be a great quarterback for us. And, you know, we have no other intention than to let him help us win football games.